Jantelagen. You're not to think you are anything special. You're not to think you are as good as we are. You're not to think you are smarter than we are. You're not to imagine yourself better than we are. You're not to think you know more than we do. You're not to think you are more important than we are. You're not to think you're good at anything. You're not to laugh at us. You're not to think anyone cares about you. You're not to think you can teach us anything.
Sounds depressing, yeah, because it is. And what I just read are the fictional laws of Jante, or Jantelagen. I thought I would make this video kind of analytical at first when I had the idea, but then I realized that's kind of not what I wanted to get at. I kind of just want to rant, basically, because this is something that affects me and a lot of other people, and I mean, it would be interesting to hear some other person going in depth of it, but I just want to talk about, in the personal way that it affects me and my thoughts around it. The Law of Jante is something from a book. It's fictional.
So who was this author that wrote this? The writer Axel Sandemose didn't invent this. He took inspiration of what was already established in culture around him. Jantelagen, or the Law of Jante, is described as a social phenomenon and a norm in Scandinavia. It's a code of conduct set in a fictional story that's now used in everyday language to mark a social attitude of disapproval of expressions of individuality and personal success.
Yeah, even though it's fictional, it's very something that's kind of established now, like these social norms. And I think it's very damaging, and I don't know why we don't really talk about it more, because I don't like it, basically. I don't have that many prepared questions other than kind of to talk about the Law of Jante like generally. Because if I start with that, like when I say that, what do you think when I say bring Jantelagen up?
Well, it sort of feels like, it's not like a direct, like concentrated word that comes to mind, but it's sort of like, it's every day you're facing it.
Yeah.
But it's very obscure. So, it's very low key. It's like this little slithering snake sort of feel. But you realize that you're very heavily affected by it every day.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's sort of like you don't really think about it. It sort of feels like, Big Brother.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, like, it's there, but the whole thing is being rewritten, so you can't really grasp it.
Yeah.
So it's maybe not that specific of an answer, but...
Yeah, no, but I get it, because that's kind of where I am too, and I think most of us, and I think, like, when I at least wrote it down, like, my notes on this, when I started this video idea, like, I'm like, at least as Swedes and Scandinavians, like, I'm surprised that we talk so little about it, for it being such a big thing that affects everyone on a subconscious level and conscious, but rarely do we think that this is a belief that's stopping me, because I don't view it very positively.
No.
So,
and I wonder if anyone does actually.
I think I've
like
not personally, but I've seen online when I researched some that people think that it's contributed to a good thing because of like the whole, I guess, like socialistic aspect of like thinking about other people, and as like a society, can be a good thing. Like, but then I was like, well, maybe, but not in the way that I've seen it affect people and me and you, because it's like, it is affecting us every day, but we're just not aware of it.
It feels like it's the sort of thing where, like, with a lot of I can't say the word.
I think you said it
Ideology.
Yeah, no. Ideologies.
Yeah, exactly.
Ideologies.
So, I'm just not going to be able to pronounce that.
Okay.
But like you read, it's like it's great on paper,
Yeah.
but then you add human nature to
Yeah.
it, and it sort of just collapses. Like
Yeah,
I can see
because-
what they mean, that it
Yeah, but-
contributes to a great, but
I think also the people that wrote that, they were not Scandinavians. And they think it's like,
Yeah,
oh, we don't
maybe.
like people that brag. And I think that's, but like, yeah, you can find good aspects of any culture and negative, like pros and cons. You find it in every culture. But the way I see it is that no, it's not really about that you should be able to brag or you should be able to. No, it's, for me, my problem with it, it's that I think it's belittling and I think it's self-deprecating and I
Yeah.
think it's self-limiting. It limits
and
you.
exactly what I was thinking. It's sort of just hämmar, alltså,
Yeah.
sort of it forces you, it stops you from growing.
Yeah.
And it sort of keeps you in this, I'm just getting the picture of like, it keeps you in this too small of a pot where you actually need to be repotted. But it's like, no, you have to stay in this pot because for everyone to fit, or like the idea that everyone gets this portion of space and you can't outgrow it. So you're just sort of, your roots just start spiraling. Like you can't,
Yeah.
do you get the picture I'm trying to paint? And so I feel like it's sort of like,
Yeah, I don't think the problem is if we remove the love Jante, that, oh my God, now everyone is gonna derail and it's gonna be bad. No, I think that there's space for everyone to be
yeah.
bigger, like in the sense of growing and like take up more space. There's room for everyone. It's not a competition of like, that's not gonna be a problem. Because I think we're meant
that,
to.
Like, the Jantelagen also sort of relies on the idea that we are very like individualistic.
Exactly.
So like, I need to have my space, my pocket, but if you remove the but like I'm sort of thinking of like, when Paul talks about the whole body. Like we're many different body parts,
Yeah.
but we all come together to one body. And I think that's sort of the original thought, is that we all grow because we're all needed, and we're sort of like, we become a community together.
Yeah.
And we assist each other with different, so we're relying on each other. So like certain people might to the outside world look like they're taking a bigger part or more important part, but we're all needed, and sort of we integrate into each other. And I think that's sort of the problem with Jantelagen, is that it sort of isolates people, and it sort of just gets them to be individualistic and alone.
Yeah.
It's it doesn't really, it sort of just doesn't bring life.
No, it doesn't, obviously. This is what
Like, obviously, look at our
this is a
society
problem.
right now.
How have we not talked about it before? Because
no, but I think people touch them, but then they're like, yeah.
barely. I feel like I'm just like, I noticed that I'm surprised.
I think
have not
in my experience, I think that the most times I've heard about it is like in sermons in church, where they're like very negative, like, oh, this Jantelagen, but then they feels like it's sort of from this perspective that they want us to go all American.
Yeah.
You know that
My pronouns are USA.
exactly. Freedom.
I don't know if that's the cure.
No, it's not. But I mean, that's the angle. Because
yeah.
that's the only time I've really heard a conversation about it. But I haven't really.
Once in your whole life. No, I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
I understand what you mean. And so I agree. It's sort of not really. It's sort of just, we've just grown complacent to it.
Exactly. We accepted that.
But this is the revolution.
Yeah.
It's starting here and now. It's
down with the law of
fire.
Jante. It's fictional, but it's real. Yeah, exactly.
Anyways.
What is it that she says?
If we burn, you burn with us.
Me, Katniss.
Yeah. All right, Katniss, take it to the courts.
Yeah, how do I circle back to something? Yeah.
Sorry.
Don't say sorry. This is content.
Yeah.
This is what it is to talk
Yeah, it is.
with friends. Yeah. So we agree. Like, we have probably similar experiences.
Yeah.
I think most of people do. But what I think, if I go back to my original idea why I made this video, I'm probably gonna find another track to go on, because I think the reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place wasn't because I'm such a hater of Jantelagen. It was because I reached a point where I wanted to do something, but I noticed something was holding me back, and I thought I had some introspection, and then I noticed in the subconscious, oh, this Jantelagen, that's probably a reason why, because it's like, yeah, we only notice it when we actively think about it, at least in my experience. And I was like, I don't like this. Why do I have to adhere to this? Why do I have to live in alignment with this thing that is just made up? But I can't say it doesn't affect me, because it's very clear once you meet people that are not from your country, from your culture, you think it's like, maybe it's like just like a personal basics, like all human.
All the wisdom has left me.
Okay, let me tell you what horrible thing has happened.
The camera died.
The mid conversation. I don't know how long we.
Girl.
Sorry.
This feels
But now we
dangerous.
can see it's blinking in the back of the furniture. We can see that it's recording.
Yeah.
Good.
Then you know.
I was.
We were on fire.
We were on fire.
We were telling truth.
Fire was very funny.
Not a line sight.
It was very funny that you said fire, but they will never know because it was very much fire coded.
No, I think we talked about it in the beginning.
Fire revolution. Yeah, but the end was really heated.
Unintended.
But now we're kind of like we're mourning that part because it was very fun and funny. But yeah, so we kind of have to just have a talk again, not the whole thing, just generally what we were talking about, so I can have some more footage that we potentially lost, because I have no idea how long we talked. But it recorded 10 minutes before the card got full and the battery almost died.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So we're a little bit defeated.
Yeah.
But so is Jantelagen.
Anyways. So
I think we go backwards from where we started.
Our point was this.
Yeah.
That you be yourself.
Yes.
And that it takes like different expressions.
I think I said when I was planning this video out, I was like focused on what is it gonna look like, the structure of it. But then I was like, you know what? I'll just start, and then whatever it turns into, that's what it will be, which is what I was telling her in the end. I was like, this felt like a podcast. Should I just post this as a podcast?
And I was skeptical.
Yeah, but I was like, this is great.
More confident.
And we got riled up.
And now it's over.
Now it died again.
Yeah, because...
But, don't let your self-belief die. But let Jantelagen die. That's all we have to say.
Over and out.
Okay, so my question that I'm asking my friends is how they think the law of Jante has affected them personally, because that's the angle I'm coming from in this video. So I think, I don't know, when I say Jantelagen, what's the first thing that you think of?
The first thing I think of, honestly, misplaced. I don't really...
Misplaced?
I am misplaced. I have like a love-hate relationship with Swedish culture in general. So I can't relate to a lot of stuff with the law of Jante. Because my upbringing and the things I experienced wasn't really in line with how other Swedes lived out the law of Jante. But now as an adult, I don't want to say everything with law of Jante is bad.
Okay.
Or I've developed some sort of
What would
Stockholm
you say?
syndrome.
Okay. Yes. Sounds
I'm a
accurate.
hostage in my own culture.
Yeah.
No, yeah, kind of, maybe. Maybe that's what the law of Jante does to you. Just holds you hostage in...
Period. I would say, but yeah. Okay.
There is a sense of it takes a village mentality that comes with the law of Jante. But when the law of Jante becomes a comfort zone, it's not really a comfort zone, it's more a confining zone.
I agree.
But yeah, there are aspects to it that can coexist with the beautiful culture of it takes a village kind of thing.
I think, yeah, because I also have, of course, thought about that. Like, what are the positive sides to it? I don't, like, personally, I don't find a lot of them, but I could see some angles where it's not entirely bad, of course, which is nothing is entirely bad, you know, or most things are not that black and white. But I think what I kind of want to get at is the part where it does affect you personally in a bad way, because I feel like that's the, generally speaking, how it affects most people, and it affects you in a way that it's not good, basically, because you said a couple words that I have also described it as, like, confining, because I think it's it's both subconsciously and consciously, even though, like you said, you didn't really have an upbringing that was very Swedish, but I'm sure that it still has affected you subconsciously, because we're just living in Sweden, in this culture. You have this sort of mindset, you can't really escape from it, but it's kind of interesting because you don't notice it, but it's always there somehow. But it doesn't mean that you have to be personally, like, deciding or like making choices that, because of that, like, because you say that you haven't really been brought up that way, but because, or maybe then you haven't really made those, like, actively intentional decisions to follow Jantelagen like other Swedes, or, like, if we generalize, I don't know.
I think the big part of the law of Jante, the aspect of like, who are you to think, is a big contributor to that part of living where it hinders you, instead of going confidently into something. You either consciously or subconsciously, I think in my case, more often it's subconsciously. I don't know. Like, what do you think? I think when the who are you to think is paired up with, because it's often paired up with fear, like fear of something new, fear of change, fear of being taken advantage, like it's a fear of something, which then makes you put up a wall towards what potentially could benefit you more than it could harm you. But because you have this underlining culture of who are you to think, I think it, yeah, hinders you. Like for the creative endeavors is a good example of like not pursuing stuff or pursuing offers or just pursuing things. I think that's kind of consciously in my head. And I think this is where it's a culture clash, because at home, I didn't grow up hearing, like, I didn't see that culture at home, because they were like, oh, why wouldn't we? That's the kind of culture I grew up with at home, with a lot of Americans coming in, they're unstoppable in their head. They are
Yeah, it's
headstrong
very,
people.
very different.
Um, and then coming to school, where everybody was born and raised in Sweden and didn't really experience outside culture, other than my family, it felt like sometimes. And then, so it would be at home, it would be like, no, why wouldn't you be able to? No, why wouldn't you? No, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
In an encouraging kind of way. And then you would come to school and it would immediately be with like, who are you to think? Who are you
Yeah.
to? Immediately kind of like, oh, okay, I need to either follow this to fit in, which then became like an active thing, because eventually as a kid you're like, I can't stand this anymore. So then I kind of, yeah, I think I for sure have developed some sort of Stockholm syndrome. But I think there can be a healthy aspect of the whole, who are you to think? Because sometimes a lot of people or a lot of situations can approach you with a very arrogant agenda, and insensitive agenda. And I think in those situations, it's good to be like, okay, but who are you? Do you know my circumstances? Who are you to give me that feedback? Or who are you to come and change? Like,
Yeah.
but when it comes from a fear or like, yeah, I can see the healthy sides of it. Most
Yeah.
of the time, it's not healthy. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I think because me and Miriam, we also talked about this, that because if you take, like you said, one law that is, you shouldn't think you're better than anyone else, or like, you know, who do you think you are, basically. And you would think that, oh well, the opposite of that would be to be like, you put yourself out there in a very arrogant, like extreme way. But we were like, yeah, but it doesn't need to look like that. You would think that I mean, you were talking about Americans, but I don't want to bash all Americans. But I mean, it's kind of funny because Swedes kind of compare, like you're like, oh, be American. It's not like we say be American, but everyone know,
We
know
kind of do,
yeah,
'cause it
in a
is
lot
the
of
counter
yeah, it's kind of like
culture.
exactly like the opposite of what we're like. But I don't. That's
They
not.
are very outgoing.
Yeah, but they take space and but they're also like, maybe not. No, I'm gonna stop myself from that's not what I wanted to go into. But I was trying to say that that's not the answer. Like, that's not the way to cope with Jantelagen. It's like, it's about you being you, and that is looking like something. That doesn't mean you should try to be something you're not. Like, be American or be that. Like, you shouldn't have to overcompensate. You just have to be yourself and allow yourself to exist and take place by putting yourself out there, by pursuing things you want to pursue. It doesn't mean you need to be like, ah, because like Jantelagen says, like, don't be like that. Like, you don't want to be,
Stand out.
yeah, you don't want to stand out. You don't, be obnoxious, blah blah. Like, like, I don't think you have to worry about that being a thing if you try to step outside Jantelagen. Like, that's, you don't have to worry about that. Like, it's good to be humble, but I don't think Jantelagen is humbling. It's like, it's belittling. It's
Almost
like,
paralyzing.
yes, it is, because I mean, it really shows up in our culture. It really does. So like, it's affected so many people. It's kind of interesting that it's such a wide, or like on such a big scale, that it's like so ingrained in us. But yeah, I don't think the way to go is to be the opposite, like, because like, yeah, I think being humble is a really great thing, but that doesn't mean you should shrink yourself down. That's not humbling either.
No.
Being humble is like knowing who you are and being okay with that.
Being
knowing
honest.
knowing your place, knowing like your identity, knowing who you are and knowing who you're not.
Not being able to take credit when someone gives you credit.
Yeah.
That's just a weird thing. I've started to do that when people are like, this was really good, instead of being like, no. I'm like, okay, no, just take the compliment and just say, yeah, okay, thank you. I actually worked really hard on this and I put a lot of effort into it. So why should I not say thank you? And I've noticed with a lot of Swedes, they get a little bit
Uncomfortable.
taken aback when it's like, thank you. They're like, oh, yeah, of course, you're welcome. Like, no, I really meant it. And now I see that you also really took it. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of... Whoa.
Yeah. Jantelagen, it really is a wide spectrum of things we do and don't do, like behavior-wise. Because why shouldn't we? Because this is also this, like, I also talked about this in another conversation, but this, like, that we don't celebrate. And we don't celebrate people who try to do something, pursue something.
Whether they
like,
fail or succeed.
Yeah, for example, like artists in Sweden or whatever, like they can, or anybody successful in the beginning, like I would say I see it because that's maybe where I am, but mostly in like social media. You try to do anything on social media, creative or whatever you want to do. In the beginning, people are so judgmental, myself included, because this is a mindset. Like, this is not maybe my thoughts, but it's so easy for that thought to become the first thought. Like, you judge, like, this was not very good, or like, why did it's like you,
who am I to
but like, why are they
this,
trying? Like those kinds of judgmental thoughts. And like, you see a person try and then all of a sudden they become successful, and then suddenly people are like, oh my god, your biggest fan from nowhere. And then they cross a line where it's like okay to like them. That they want to celebrate that they're successful, like, oh, see, this is a Swedish artist, like, we like them.
I think
all of the sudden. But like, I'm like, that's so bad. Like, why wouldn't we celebrate, try to encourage people that are trying, like, because success is like, it only matters if you succeed. But like, that's the whole mindset of like, you think you're a failure until you succeed. And like, the standards of Swedes or Scandinavians, it's like,
it's this mindset of like doing things in vain. Like, just don't waste your time.
Yeah,
that kind of
this
thing.
whole mentality
Which is
is
really
so bad.
weird, because you're not really, most things you don't do in vain, because everything you do or everything you're experiencing is building you as a
it's going
human.
to lead you somewhere.
But I feel like in the examples of creativity and people putting themselves out there, because creative people, the thing they create is part of like how expressing your insides, putting it out, and that's a really vulnerable thing to do.
Yeah.
So I think it's really insensitive. This is a really insensitive part of the law of Jante, where it's, as you say, not celebrating until you have passed the one-hit wonder stage. Like, yeah, that was a fun thing you did with your friends. But then if you give them a hint of like, no, we're actually going to try this, then it's like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Call me when you fail or
you're
a millionaire.
It's just,
it's
it
weird.
it doesn't produce any good fruit. It doesn't, like, Jantelagen is just not a good thing. It doesn't, because if it were, you would have more to show for it. That's good.
Oh yeah, it definitely does not nurture a good habitat for trial and error.
Yeah.
As like an encouraging
health,
thing.
Nothing. I mean, it's anything but encouraging. Literally the opposite. And what's the point of trying to conform to be like everyone else? Because how are they feeling? I don't think they're doing very good. And also when you said like, yeah, because my upbringing wasn't either very Swedish,
No, I
but
wouldn't say.
but I don't know if I felt, this is the thing, I never thought about it actively when I grew up, but still, even though we weren't raised in it, it still does affect you, because there's a whole country, a whole people who thinks like that. So it's still like a
It's like a
force.
habitual behavior.
Yeah, so it's
Communal
like,
behavior that you pick up as a child, because the children pick
yeah,
up so many more signals than we imagine.
of course, it's a social norm. But it's subconscious. But I was like, yeah, I'm done trying to. I don't want to live with this type of mindset. So I like this video. I was like, I'm tired of this mindset because I don't like it, and I would do something about it in my life. And I was like, there's not a lot of videos about this, like about like what's something good you can do, or like what's the so like how do we fix this problem, or how do we, like I don't just want to talk about it to talk badly about it and then just leave it at that. I want to like find a way out of it, which is like my point. So, and when I thought about it, I thought the only way to do that is to take a belief, you have to switch it out to something else, because you can't just not think about it. You have to
Yeah.
change the
Yeah.
way you think. And the way I see it is that you have to take this belief, the Jantelagen, with a self belief, just by the whole very cliche believing in yourself. Believing in yourself that you can do things, that what you want to offer, what you have to offer, who you are, has value, and that you should do that. You should do these things. You should take space. And yeah.
And I think what you're saying to kind of get out of that bubble is to take out one bad habit and change it with a good habit.
Mm-hmm.
But then that needs to be more and more people being aware of doing that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's kind of like, okay, well, I've changed, but nothing else in society has.
Yeah. But I mean, if you do what you want to do in terms of like, let's say something creative, whatever, you allow yourself to take that space, you are not taking someone else's space if you're yourself. So, like, and you should be able to do that, and not take other things personally. Like, 'cause when you get to that point of believing in yourself, doesn't matter what other people say, or like that the society hasn't changed in the way of like, they ostracize you for that, or like, in Jantelagen you should not stick out. But in this type of way, like if you're that person in a way that you are you, and not this other version, whatever you think it needs to look like for you to be able to take that space. Like you don't need to be on the complete other end, on the edge, just for you to be brave enough to take that step. Like you can just, if you can find that place and you're encouraged in yourself and you can encourage others, then you get the collectiveness, the mindset. Like you individually take care of yourself, but then you also encourage those around you, then you're affecting, like,
be the change you want to see.
yeah. Because, yeah, because I'm viewing this more from like how this affect me personally, and like I want to talk to my friends. I haven't really looked at this as like this huge societal problem that, oh, how am I gonna fix this? Because I mean, it's gonna take me maybe a lot of generations. It probably will never really leave. But yeah, I'm more like want to make sure that in my own life I'm not bound by it, and I don't want my friends and family to be bound by it. So I mean, that's how you gotta think, I think.
Yeah. Someone needs to start the change, and then you pass it on.
Yeah. But it's good to start to think about it, because now
Oh, awareness.
Awareness.
Awareness is
Yeah,
the
but-
first step.
Yeah, I mean, for yourself, like now, when it's come to the front of your mind, you're gonna maybe start to see Jantelagen everywhere and like interactions, and you start to notice how it affects you, and maybe how you subconsciously maybe have that mindset towards others, and then you can be aware of it. Then you can change it, because I didn't really think about Jantelagen that much until I decided to think about it, and now
that's true.
I'm probably gonna see so many signs of it everywhere from now on, like. So, for anyone listening that's Swedish, I mean, this is probably going to happen to you. When you're aware of it, you're going to start to think about it, how it shows up in your life, which is like the first step, and then you can decide to do something about it.